Stephanie Spicer, and I'm a Lymie. If you have Lyme disease, it's almost certain that at some point in your life someone has told you that it's all in your head. This can be incredibly frustrating and disempowering, even maddening, because it implies that if you just had a better outlook on life, you would get better. This accusation is false. Lyme disease is a real illness caused by real bacteria which wreak havoc on every part of your body if given enough time. Fighting it requires determined, strategic treatment, not just woo-woo wishful thinking or blind positivity or pretending it doesn't exist. We live in our bodies, and no one has the right to tell us what we feel or don't feel besides us. So why do we always get this? Well, Lyme disease is notoriously invisible. Not only does it often fail to show up on tests, often it doesn't show itself in our faces or in our lives either, as we've learned to live with it and not complain and try to function around it as normally as we can. People may know us for years and never suspect that we have a chronic illness, and we may avoid telling people just so that we don't have to deal with their disbelief, which is by far one of the hardest parts of having this illness, especially when it comes from those closest to us. Sometimes those who love us can't handle the idea of us being sick, and so they go into denial and expect us to go along with the charade. Unfortunately, we still have to live with Lyme whether or not they accept that it's real. We still have to fight it whether we want to or not. One thing that complicates the issue is that Lyme actually does cause psychological issues like depression, anxiety, fear, rage, nightmares, depersonalization, and even thoughts of suicide. These are symptoms of Lyme as it attacks the central nervous system, brain, and meninges. In that sense, yes, Lyme is in our heads, in the sense that the bacteria physically infect our brains. And it can be hard to have the presence of mind to step back and remind ourselves that these feelings have little or nothing to do with external factors, but are symptoms of disease. Conversely, external stress and emotional factors can and do exacerbate Lyme symptoms. Many Lyme patients live with the disease seemingly dormant in their system for years, until they experience a physical or emotional trauma, which leads to a complete breakdown in their health. So yes, there is an interplay between our physical and emotional health, especially as Lymies. When I first got diagnosed with Lyme, my doctor asked me to come in to discuss treatment options. I was a little shocked and a little more than offended that the only idea he had come up with was that I should go to a psychiatrist and take anti-depressant drugs. He had literally just diagnosed me with a bacterial disease, and psychiatric therapy was the only plan. I walked out and never went back. Now, looking back after many years of targeted Lyme treatment, I have to admit that I probably did need some therapy. I think we all could use therapy, to be honest, and I think maybe he recognized some psychological issues I had that took me years to recognize myself. Some years ago, I came to a point in my life where I just felt so stuck in the same cycles of depression, anxiety, and always seeming to get stuck in situations with psychopathic people who just sucked the life out of me, that I remember just crying out to God to show me a way to break free. As usual, I was broke and couldn't afford to go to a psychiatrist or a psychologist, but God did answer my prayer. As I looked for answers on the internet, I was able to find resources that really helped me. Healing, breaking old cycles, and moving forward has been a long and often painful journey, but I'm so much better today than I was just a few years ago. I wasn't ready to go through this process when I was very ill, at the point when my doctor suggested it to me. And I'm glad I waited until the disease was more under control before I tried facing the dark corners of my mind. I don't think I could have handled it before, but I had to eventually. That being said, I would encourage anyone watching this video to reach out for help if you need it. If you're feeling suicidal or living in an abusive environment or struggling day to day with depression, please reach out to someone who can help. Call a hotline. Don't wait for it to get worse. Living in an abusive or toxic stress environment can delay your recovery. Childhood trauma can affect health across a lifetime. Check out the incredible TED Talk linked in the description. And I'd like to add one more thing. When I actually started Lyme disease treatment, actual killing of bacteria using a Rife machine, employing detox protocols on a regular basis, adding magnesium supplementation, my psychological symptoms were among the first to go. I went through a really psychologically upsetting season of herxing at the beginning of treatment, but I was so glad to say goodbye to the worst of those symptoms. In conclusion, it's not all in your head. This disease can and will attack every part of your body. But we do all have stuff in our head that we need to deal with, whether that's bacteria or trauma. It's usually both. And yes, these two things can be tangled up together and going in both directions. Sometimes we do need help, and it's okay to ask for it. I wish each one of you the fullest healing of both your body and your mind. Keep on fighting until it's over.